The Ultimate Warrior was one of the most colorful and unforgettable characters in wrestling during the late 1980s and early 1990s. With his neon face paint, wild energy, and frantic sprint to the ring, he created a presence unlike anything fans had ever seen. But behind the high-octane entrances and superhuman persona was a man who divided opinion in the wrestling world. He was fiery, uncompromising, and held a strong view of his own worth, which often put him at odds with promoters and fellow wrestlers. Today, we look back at Warrior's career, not just as the superhero figure fans adored, but as the man who clashed with some of wrestling's biggest names and often found himself on the opposite side of respect. WrestleMania 6, the passing of the torch. For many fans, the defining moment of Warrior's career came at WrestleMania 6 in 1990. In one of the most iconic main events of all time, he defeated Hulk Hogan clean in the middle of the ring to win the WWF Championship. It was presented as a passing of the torch, a rare moment when Hogan, who had been the company's biggest star for nearly a decade, stepped aside to let another carry the mantle. But while Warrior held the title and received the spotlight, Hogan's popularity never truly dimmed. He continued to outsell Warrior in merchandise, remained the higher-paid star, and still drew more cheers in arenas. For Warrior, who believed being champion should mean being the undisputed top name, this was a source of growing frustration. Despite his victory, he never felt like he had truly surpassed Hogan in the eyes of the company or the fans. SummerSlam and a clash with Vince McMahon. Warrior's frustrations came to a head at SummerSlam in 1991. Scheduled to team with Hogan in a high-profile match, Warrior shocked Vince McMahon just days before the event by handing over a letter with a list of demands. He wanted the same level of pay and creative control that Hogan enjoyed, a higher cut of merchandise sales, and an upfront payment to guarantee his appearance at the event. McMahon, under pressure to deliver the advertised main event, agreed, and Warrior went ahead with the match. But once the show was over, McMahon handed him a letter of his own, suspending him for what he called unprofessional conduct. This incident marked the beginning of a strained relationship between Warrior and the boss, one that would continue for years. A second chance and more friction. When Warrior returned to the company in 1992, Vince McMahon initially had big plans to restore him to the top. One idea was for Warrior to turn villain, aligning with Mr. Perfect in a major storyline that would eventually put him back into the championship picture. But Warrior refused, worried that abandoning his heroic persona would hurt his merchandise sales and damage his carefully built image. His refusal forced McMahon to change course, and tensions between the two only grew worse when Warrior was later suspended following a mandatory drug test. Though Warrior saw it as an unfair move meant to protect the company's image, McMahon considered it part of his responsibility to safeguard the brand during a difficult period. By the end of 1992, Warrior's run was cut short again, and this time he was officially released. Conflicts in the locker room. Warrior's clashes weren't limited to McMahon. Several wrestlers had tense relationships with him behind the scenes. Rick Rude, known for being precise and professional in the ring, disliked what he felt was Warrior's reckless style. Their matches looked spectacular to fans, but behind the curtain, Rude reportedly found working with him frustrating and believed Warrior did not respect the importance of safety. Similarly, Jake the Snake Roberts recalled being stunned when he was told to personally seek Warrior's approval before starting a feud with him. When Roberts approached him, Warrior allegedly laid out a list of conditions and emphasized that he was doing Jake a favor by agreeing to work together. Roberts, who had waited years for a chance at main event status, felt humiliated by the exchange. When Warrior's suspension derailed their planned feud, Roberts lost the opportunity he had been promised, deepening the resentment. The Rocky Return of 1996. Despite their rocky history, McMahon brought Warrior back in 1996 when WWE's roster was struggling due to injuries and defections to WCW. Warrior's return was heavily promoted, and his first match back was against a young Triple H at WrestleMania 12. The original plan called for a competitive contest, but Warrior insisted on dominating. The result was a match lasting under 2 minutes, with Warrior shrugging off Triple H's offense and winning easily. McMahon, watching from backstage, was furious at how it unfolded, believing it harmed the company's efforts to build new stars. Warrior's next program with Goldust was equally troubled, as he disliked the character and refused to engage in anything beyond brief encounters, leading to unsatisfying matches. Soon after, Warrior began missing scheduled appearances, citing personal reasons, but McMahon questioned his commitment. The relationship collapsed once again, and by the summer of 1996, Warrior was gone. UCW and the Halloween Havoc debacle. In 1998, Eric Bischoff brought Warrior into WCW, hoping to recreate the magic of his feud with Hulk Hogan and generate the kind of box office success they had achieved years earlier. The build-up was filled with elaborate segments meant to feel larger than life, but many of them fell flat with fans, including strange moments like Warrior appearing in a mirror only Hogan could see. By the time their rematch happened at Halloween Havoc, expectations were high, but the result was a disaster. The match was clunky, overbooked, and filled with mistakes, failing to capture any of the magic of their WrestleMania clash years before. Rather than elevating the company, the storyline damaged Warrior's reputation and left him disillusioned with the business. After this run, he quietly stepped away from wrestling altogether. A reputation for bitterness. In the years that followed, Warrior often spoke critically about his time in wrestling and about those he had worked with. His blunt honesty and fiery personality made him one of the most polarizing figures of his era. Some admired his refusal to compromise, while others felt he held grudges and alienated too many people. His criticisms of fellow wrestlers, including Hogan and others, kept his name in the headlines long after his in-ring career ended, though they also fueled the perception that he was difficult to work with. Still, fans who had grown up watching him sprint to the ring and shake the ropes continued to celebrate his unforgettable energy and intensity, separating the character they loved from the man behind the paint. Reconciliation and Hall of Fame. Induction. By 2014, after years away, Warrior and WWE finally made peace. Vince McMahon reached out, and after decades of animosity, Warrior returned to the company for his induction into the WWE Hall of Fame. It was a moment of closure not only for Warrior, but also for fans who had long hoped to see him recognized alongside his peers. On the night of his induction, he gave an emotional speech, thanking the fans for keeping his legacy alive and reflecting on the journey that had defined his career. 2 nights later, he appeared on Monday Night Raw, standing in the ring one final time as the Ultimate Warrior. He spoke about the power of a wrestler's legacy and how their spirit lived on through the fans. It was a speech that felt eerily final, as if he knew he was saying goodbye. A sudden farewell. Just days after his return and Hall of Fame induction, tragedy struck when Warrior passed away from a heart attack at the age of 54. The timing was shocking and heartbreaking, coming right after what felt like a perfect ending to his story. His sudden passing left fans stunned, but it also gave his career a poignant sense of closure. For all the controversies and conflicts that defined his journey, His final appearance allowed fans and colleagues to celebrate him for what he truly was, a one-of-a-kind performer whose energy, passion, and intensity made him unforgettable. The lasting legacy of the Ultimate Warrior. The Ultimate Warrior's story is one of contrasts. A superstar who inspired millions with his larger-than-life persona, yet struggled behind the scenes with relationships and expectations. He clashed with bosses, fellow wrestlers, and even fans at times, but he also gave the wrestling world moments that will never be forgotten. From his explosive victory over Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 6 to his unforgettable entrances that electrified arenas, Warrior's presence left a permanent mark on wrestling history. His Hall of Fame induction and emotional farewell in 2014 reminded fans of the magic he brought, while his sudden passing highlighted the fragility of life beyond the paint and the ropes. Love him or criticize him, no one can deny that the Ultimate Warrior was truly unique, a performer who embodied the wild energy of an era and left behind a legacy that continues to inspire discussion and remembrance to this day.